welcome back to my channel. On today's video we are going to be doing some more work on this lovely tiger in water. If you missed the first video where we did the eyes and the stripes, I will link it up in the top so that you can check that out and follow along with us. Now for this part, we're primarily going to be working on the left ear and the top of the head. And so I'm going to be using a lot of the same colors that I used before with a couple of new ones. So we are going to be starting out with, we'll be using the Goldenrod from the Prismacolors. We will be using the light peach, the cool gray 20%, the sepia, the indigo blue, and the white, and those are from the Prismacolors. And then from the Faber Castell Goldfaber pencils, we are going to be using the yellow ochre, the burnt sienna, and we will be using the black. I may or may not add in a few other colors as needed. We'll see how it goes. But we will start out with this and get going on this tiger. Now I used to have a really hard time with cat ears because they have a lot of fluff right in here. So a lot of times it's very, very hard to see that or to get that full effect in. I actually learned a few tricks over the last few weeks that have come in very handy for that, and I'll be showing you one of my favorite ones in just a few moments when we get going on that. So right now I'm just pulling up my reference photo because I forgot to do that before I started recording. So we're just going to get that pulled up really quick. Alright, so now I am going to again do very, very light layers, build up the layers so that we have a nice fluffy looking tiger. I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you guys in on the ear here, and let's get started. So in the last video we took the sepia and we just add little fur strokes to mark out the dark areas. And we're just going to go back over that again, because even though this part of the ear is dark, it's not going to be all black. So I kind of just want to go over that again. And I kind of tend to like to do the darker areas first because it helps me with my contrast. Now I know there's been some confusion about the Faber-Castell pencils that I use. The ones that I use are not the polychromos. I use the Goldfaber ones, which can be found in Michael's. They are actually cheaper when you buy them individually than the Prismacolor pencils. But I will explain in another video why I prefer to use both. So right now I'm going to take the Prismacolor Indigo Blue, and I'm just going to very, very lightly go over the same areas that I went over with the sepia. What this is going to do is it's going to add some depth to the fur, but you don't want to go too dark because we don't want blue fur, at least not in this piece. I have seen some beautiful pictures of animals with really cool shadows to them where they're really, really, really blue. This particular one is not. If it is a warm shadow, if it's a warm black, you want to use browns and reds and possibly some oranges. If it's a cooler, you want to use blues and purples. So keep that in mind when you are looking at your reference photo. So now I'm going to take my black and go over that as well. And I'm just going to continue this process until I get a nice good layer down. I'm not worrying about detail right now. I'm just worried about getting the shapes and the colors down. It's the detail we want to save for last, otherwise it's just going to get lost. Still following the direction of the fur. sepia in there. I feel this is a little bit more of a warmer black, but I do still like to add the indigo in a little bit just to give it a little bit of depth. And these will all blend together really, really nicely. And there's several ways you can blend. You can blend with the white pencil like I did with the eye, and that I do more so with surfaces that I want to have glossy or look shiny, because the drawback to using the white is that it's going to knock the color back and you'll have to keep going back and adding more color. You can also get colorless pencil blenders. You can also use odorless mineral spirits, which I do have and I do use from time to time. This is called the Gamasol. Let's see if I can get you where you can see it. This is called Gamasol, and it is 100% pure odorless mineral spirits, and it works really, really well for blending colored pencils. One of the things that I like about it is that you can just go over it, and you're not losing the tooth of the paper. You just gotta let that section dry before you do more drawing on it. But it kind of blends everything in a little bit. It will make everything look a little darker, so beware of that. And maybe we'll use it here to show what it's going to look like. Anyways, so at this point I want to go in and map out where the orange part of the ear is. And I'm going to start that with using my Faber Castell yellow ochre, and the reason I'm choosing the Faber Castell over the Prismacolor is because I just want to map it out. I don't want it to be too dark yet, and this will allow me to go in very, very lightly. So if I pay attention to the direction of the fur, I'm zooming in just a little bit here on my piece. We have some of the fur is going this way, and then some of it over here is going a little bit upwards. So you really want to pay attention to where the fur starts and stops. You also want to pay attention to the direction of the fur because it does change quickly. And it's a little bit longer as it comes out here a little bit. And I'm also pulling it into the black. And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want any harsh lines, so I want it to be nice and blended together. I'm actually excited to be recording this today because normally I record at nighttime once my kids have gone to bed, but my daughter is with her grandmother today and my husband has taken my son out to the arcade, so I have a little free time to sit during the day and do this, so it's actually been quite nice. Alright, so now I'm going to take my Goldenrod and I'm just going to lightly go over, and this is going to add a little bit of fur stroke, so you want to make sure you have a nice sharp point, and I'm just very close together fur strokes, and again just following the direction. Once you map it in a little bit, you shouldn't stray too much from the direction of the fur, but just always keep that in mind because it's super, super important. Okay, and there is a little bit of light peach in the ear, especially in this area. So you're going to just go ahead, and this will help to blend it a little too. Whenever you feel you need to blend something, take a lighter color. Doesn't have to be white, and you can just go over it. For example, I could take a Okay, and I just realized that the camera wasn't really focused on the ear section that I was doing, and I apologize for that. My camera setup is kind of new to me, so I would appreciate if you guys could just bear with me. But again, I took the colors and went in the direction of the fur, which is primarily up this way, and we've shaded some warm gray 4 and some cool gray 20% into here. And now we're going to do a cool little trick to add some of those white furs. It I have this little piece of paper here that I cut. It was a square, and then I cut a square inside the middle. It's nothing fancy. I have this, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of tape and I am going to put it diagonally across here. And then I'm going to take one of these. This is an embossing tool, but you can also use a really sharp pencil if you don't have this. And then I'm going to pay attention to the fur stroke, or the fur direction rather, and I am going to make the strokes of the white fur. And if you have enough layers down, it should pull that right up. And if you don't, you can go back and you can add some more layers. And you can do it again. And this is a cool little trick because it takes very little to... Oh, I'm looking for my other gray color pencil that was in my hand. It takes very, very little effort to create this illusion. And even, like I said, even if you don't have the tools that I'm using, you could make them yourself. You can use a colored pencil instead of an embossing tool. And we're just going to make these little white hairs. And as you can see, I'm starting to get those little white hairs right there. Now I am in the process of getting a ceramic blade, as I mentioned before, and I'm very excited to try that because I hear it doesn't rip up the paper as much. I can get a lot more detail and definition. But in the meantime, this is what I've got to work with. So you do what you got to do with what you have. Again, I'm still a fairly new artist, so I don't have all the little gadgets that are required yet, but I'm working on it. And it's just important to find ways to use the things that you have readily available to you. Also, if you do this a little bit on the firm side, especially with an embossing tool, you're going to cause a dent in the paper, which normally wouldn't be a good thing. In this case it is, because what's going to happen is when we go back over this, the color is not going to go into those dents. So when we go back over it, it's actually going to make those dents pop a little bit more. We can go over those as many times as we need. We're going to add some shadows in here. Kind of pop them out a little bit. We can also go in with the Xacto Knife, which I have here, and you can scrape little areas out. I just advise being careful because you can cut your paper up pretty good. But this does work really nicely as well. So it's, you know, we got a couple options available. I'll be doing a review on the ceramic blade once I get it. I'm also going to be in the near future getting some drafting paper, probably in the next week or so. It's a little bit more durable, and I'm excited to try that. So I'll do a review on that as well. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing because we got some cool stuff coming up. Alright, so I'm actually quite happy with the way that's looking. Now I can just gently go over this and add some contrast to it. So now we're going to go back over and work on the orange fur a little bit. So I'm going to take my two yellows again, and I'm also going to take my Sienna brown. And again, I'm going to go back and add the fur direction. I want to overlap it again with the gray and the black areas so everything is all blending in together nicely. And I know that this ear isn't absolutely perfect. I've seen artists do a much better job. But again, as I had stated in my intro video, the channel, I've only been doing this for a year, so this is just documenting my progress. I'm not claiming to be an expert by any means. So up here and in here, it's a little bit darker. So we're going to take the burnt sienna and we're going to again follow the fur direction. And we're going to make little fur strokes. And this is going to add some detail and some dimension to this ear. That's looking really nice. I want to add a little bit of that to this too. I feel like it could really use a little darkening up over here, but then what's really nice is once I darken it up, I can go through and also lighten it with my eraser. I'm just going in the same direction. I'm just going to just lightly add a couple of lines. And this is what I mean by not being afraid to use your eraser, because it could be a great tool. So I'm pretty happy with the way that's looking. I'm going to go back through, darken up the ear a little bit more. I'm going to add more pressure now with the black. And I can feel now the paper's a lot smoother underneath the black because I've added so many layers. And now I'm going to have some of this hair come out, and you can see where I've embossed it is now starting to show through a little bit. Now it's starting to get a little bit more of a fluffier look. That contrast is so important. Had I not gone back in and added that darkness to it, it really would not have popped the way it is now. So now that's looking a lot better, and I can even add some black into here as well and make that pop out a little bit more too. So again, it's not the best fluffy ear, but I think that it is pretty good. And I'm very happy with the way that's looking. So now we're going to move down to this part of the head. So we have some white here, so I'm not going to mess with that right now. And we have some, looks like some peach up here. So I'm going to take my light peach and I'm going to just map in the fur a little bit right here. Actually, I'm going to erase just a little bit of graphite right here. I'm just going to get rid of. So I'm going to, and this fur is going kind of straight up and it's very short. And then as it comes over here, it's going to kind of turn and it's going to kind of go underneath this black stripe all the way over to the middle. My guidelines are kind of like, okay, we're going to go to here to this stripe, and I mean, it's just, you do what you got to do to make that connection. And then in this part underneath here, it's the same thing. So we're going to have some white, some of the peach here. And it's going to come around and come down over here. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole head and do this at this point. I'm only going to work on a section at a time so that I don't get lost in what I'm doing. I don't know if, oops, I keep kicking the camera, I'm sorry about that. I don't know if you guys can see that on camera, I'm hoping you can. We're going to darken it up a little bit. So we're going to go in with the yellow ochre on the Faber Castell, and we're just going to do the same thing. Again, all about the layering process. and starting off very light. That's why I love these Faber Castell pencils, because I can start off very light. With the Prismacolors, I tend to be very heavy-handed no matter how light I try to be, and these Faber Castell pencils tend to require a lot, to put a lot of color down, so I don't go too heavy-handed, and I can add a lot more layers. Okay. And now we have some darker areas, which are going to be right here. Right here. If you notice, I'm going over the black stripes too. Again, we don't want any sudden stops in the fur. We want it to look very natural. And this is really light up here, so there's really not too much. And some coming out of the black here, and then a little bit darker as you come towards the center of the head. Back through with the Faber Castell. Again, just switching back and forth, adding lots of layers. And if I ever do go a little too dark in the light areas, I just take the pencil again and lighten those areas up. So I'm going back through with the light peach, the really light areas. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the burnt sienna, and I'm just going to go through the really dark areas first, because I'm going to use this dark sienna, or burnt sienna rather, to add in fur strokes, but I also want to get these dark patches of fur in too. This is what you do when you do wrinkles in the fur too. You want to make sure you have your light areas and your dark areas. It's what's going to give that three-dimensional kind of look. Very close attention to where the dark. I notice it's darker over here. I notice it's darker right on top of the stripes and closer to the top of the head, and over here by the ear where there's a little bit of shadow. And that's going to give, and I'm just going to very lightly add some very, very, very light fur strokes through the light areas so that we get the illusion of fur. And I'm going to go through with my light peach and just kind of go over everything to blend it all in. Okay, well now that looks really great for orange fur. However, we need to add some contrast. We need to add in some of the black stripes. Now the black stripe on the top here is a very cool black. It's a very bluish black. The rest of them seem to be very warm blacks. So we're going to go through with the cool gray, 20% on the top. Right here is following the fur direction. Just on that top one. And I'm also going to do that. Find my indigo with my indigo very, very lightly. It's going to give us that nice blue look, and then we'll just go over it with the black. And again, you want your strokes to be a little uneven, and you want them to go into the orange fur as well, and you want them to pop out above the head a little bit too. There are no straight, firm lines with animals. You need to make sure that everything looks very natural. All right, so for the other stripes, we're going to add some sepia. Again, going into the orange fur. burnt sienna and kind of blend the two together very harmoniously. So it blends the orange and the black together. And you notice I'm not going in really hard with the black. I'm not like, oh, these are dark stripes, so we're just going to go really hard. That's not what we want. We want to build up that depth. So same thing over here. I'm going to do the exact same thing to this one. But this is why we mapped them out in the beginning. So now we know where they all are. And it makes our job just a little bit faster. Because color pencils takes a very long time. And it has taught me to be a very patient person, but I could always use improvement on my patience, because sometimes I'm like, oh, this is just taking forever. It's just a stripe. Can we get through it? But no, you really just want to take your time and do it right. A lot of times you'll see that I'll go back over certain areas. Like I may be working down here and then suddenly decide there's something I don't like about the ear, and I may go back and add some stuff in there. And it's just if something happens to pop out at me and I happen to see it, I'm like, oh, you know what, that could use a little bit of this. But that doesn't hurt anything. It's okay. You're not bound to stick to one area. Just want to be careful you don't get yourself too lost. Alright, so now we have where we come upon a little bit of white fur. So I'm going to go through again and map out with my peach. So we have right here, we have some white fur, but it also mixes with a little bit of orange fur, so it kind of comes up like this, off of the black stripe, and as we get closer to here, the white fur gets thinner and thinner and the orange seems to take over. And yes, this literally is my thought process while doing this, because I want to make sure that I get everything in the right place, and this is exactly what goes through my mind when I'm doing these things. You know, it's scary being inside my head, isn't it? Alright, so now that we mapped that out with the peach, we're going to go in with the yellow ochre of the Faber Castells, and we're going to just go right back over it. Once you get the hang of it, you really start to notice it's a very repetitive process. It's just getting the techniques down first. It took me, and everyone's technique is different. I followed several different artists on Patreon using different techniques until I could find ones that worked for me, and sometimes I use a combination of techniques. Because these artists are very, very talented, and I am nowhere near as good as a lot of these artists are, but I hope to one day be. And this is how I'm going to get there, is by practicing and, you know, watching over these videos and going, oh wow, when I did that I should have done this. And there was a time where I couldn't imagine doing any of these drawings without following a tutorial. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to do this on my own because I need to know what colors to use. I need to know where to use them and how to blend them. And finally I just was like, you know what? I need to just go for it. And that's exactly what I did. And I made a bunch of mistakes, but that's how we learn. Because if we did everything right off the bat, then we wouldn't really need to learn how to do it, would we? We would already know. So, that's my little lecture. As you can see, I'm going back over a different area now because I kind of wanted to make it a little bit more furry. I'm not really doing much with the white right now, except for, you know, running a little bit of the yellow into where the white area is. And I'm going to go through with the sepia, and I'm going to just darken up this stripe here. And again, you probably can tell that there are some stripes that aren't exactly the same as the one on the picture, and that's okay. I'm not going to stress over that at this point because I've got the basic look of the tiger. And yes, my shapes may be a little bit different, but no one is really going to know that, except for you guys watching me do this. So I'm going to take some gray and add it into the stripe as well as the sepia, because this one seems to have a little bit more gray in it. And I'm also going to have some gray coming up into the white as well, because white fur isn't all white. Concept I've been having a really hard time with, because to me white fur is white. Anyways, that's a discussion for a whole nother video. I could literally talk about this stuff for hours, so please excuse me if I ramble. My family doesn't really listen to me all that much either, so. Alright, so I'm really liking the way this is coming out. Some really nice colors, really nice contrast. And then what I can do is I can always go in and I can literally just make the fur strokes through the black fur and the orange fur. And if you look right there, now it looks like we got white fur going through the black fur. It's a really great tool to have. You can do this also with a kneaded eraser. I had one. I think my kids thought it was putty and decided to play with it because now I can't find it. But this eraser works really great, and these have refills and everything too, so they're really, really great. But now I've got the look of fur. I've got some white fur looking like it's coming through there and everything. So I'm very, very happy with the way that's starting to look. Alright, and we're just going to go through and repeat that same process, because the whole side right over here is all this light peach color. As we get over here, it's going to be like a darker orange. As we get over towards the nose, it's going to be a darker orange, but all right in here is a pretty light orange and peachy color. So I'm just going to continue on down the line here. Very, very light with my light peach. Following the direction of the fur. Watching for any white patches, because I don't want to go over the white patches just yet. This comes out here, and then we got a white patch right in here. So I'm not going to do any peach on that. Adjust the camera a little bit so you guys can see better. Oops, wrong way. There we go. Okay, so add the peach in here, and there's white down here, and there's white down here, and again there's white down here, so we're just going to stop the peach right here. Now what you could also do, is again another technique I learned from another artist, is you can go over this with this base color several times and get a nice good layer up. You could also shade if you want. I prefer to use the fur strokes just really close together. It's a preference thing. And then, you know, you just start with your lightest and work your way up. make sure that you overlap into the surrounding areas as well, so that everything is, you want to be careful near the blacks, like you don't want to pull out this way because you don't want to smudge it, but like you want to make sure that your yellow is going into the black. To do just the areas where we did the light peach. Alrighty. And then I actually want to do a little bit more of the peach, because this fur is a little bit more peachier than yellow. So I'm going to go in with a little bit more of a harder pressure on the peach to kind of blend it into that yellow, but I'm not burnishing. This tiger's fur is not shiny, so I don't want a burnished look. I kind of want to give it that rough look. Alright, so now I'm going to go through and add the dark areas again. Stripes are. That's where I'm going to start. Looks like the stripe connects, and I didn't do that before. So yeah, make sure that we pay attention to that. And it's okay if you miss something like that, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you catch it. And then you're just going to lightly, very lightly skim the top here. I don't want, on the light colored fur, I don't want fur strokes that are very close together. I just want to give a slight indication of fur. Because I don't want it to look flat, but I don't want it to be too dark either. Okay, so now that that is pretty much done, just a few little touch-ups. Now if you notice, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I got a little streak right here. Thank goodness it is very light. So just erase that, and look at some of that color pencil erases too. And that's why we keep it light at first. Alright, so I think I am going to do a little bit more of this section right here, and then I'm going to end the video because I think that'll be a good spot to end it. So again, we're going to start with our base color. There is a big patch of white right here, and it goes from here, comes all the way down around here and down near the eye. So we are not going to put any color in there at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start over here towards the center of the head, and I'm going to add the fur strokes in to about there. Again, you don't have to be 100% precise. Just get as close as possible. Try to make sure you guys can see that. I apologize for some of the camera issues I've had today. I am still getting used to this setup, so it's taken a little time. And now the fur is going to start curving this way. So we're going to start curving our strokes as well. So we're going to start bringing them down this way. And as we come over here, we go from going like this to going like this. We're going to go over the little eye bone. And that's why it's important to pay attention to to the direction of the fur. Because by doing that, you're going to give the illusion of bone structure. So it's very important that you pay attention to that. Okay. Going back with my yellow ochre or my Faber Castell, I'm just going to repeat the same process. Following, this is going this way, and as it comes up around the head, it curves over towards the middle, so pay attention. Take your time. Make sure you're constantly looking at your reference photo. As I said in the first video, I prefer to have my reference photos on some sort of electronic device because then I can zoom in as opposed to having it on printout. It's okay to have it on a printout, but you also have to bear in mind that the printout's color is going to be a lot different than on a computer. So when you choose one, stick with it. Something I keep repeating because I learned the hard way. Orange, adding the first strokes, and just adding layer upon layer upon layer. It gets quite repetitive after a while. Oftentimes I'll put on some music or an audiobook or something and just just listen to something and kind of get out of my own head, and that's my relaxation. So now we're going to go through and darken up. And yes, I am doing the whole stripe on this part because there isn't really a lot of dark area, so I want to make sure that the stripe is going to overlap. I'm just double checking my reference photo as I was doing that. Making sure everything is flowing correctly. A lot of people tell me that you should slow down with the first strokes, but what I do with the first strokes, the reason I do them quickly like that is because I know that if I slow down and I do them strand by strand very methodically, I know it's not going to look realistic. Because fur is not always the same length. It doesn't, there are some pieces that overlap and don't always go in the right direction. And that is the effect I'm trying to create by going quickly. If you want to go slower, take your time. There's no rush. The tiger's fur is something that I'm pretty confident in. I drew a lot of tigers the first year because I really like them. So, it's something that I'm comfortable doing. Does it need improvement? Yeah, probably. Most of my work does. But I can't improve on a blank canvas. I need to be able to work the canvas and find out where I'm having my issues and continue to improve. Which is why YouTube is great, because I can post these videos and go back and look over them 6 months from now and go, oh my gosh, why did I post that? It was terrible. But anyways, I'm rambling again. So we're going to go and just lighten up some areas, blend everything together. And we've got a really nice start there. to the left side of this tiger's head. So I think we're going to stop there at the moment. When we come back, we'll work on the white areas. There's a little bit more of the orange right in here that we'll work on. But so far she's coming along quite nicely. I might tweak the ear a little bit more still. You know, there's always room for improvement. You can always make adjustments. So don't be afraid to go back over areas. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I would ask you to please consider subscribing to my channel and giving me a like as well to let me know that you liked it. And if you have any questions or advice, please let me know down in the comments as well. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!